cft00005m, part of Orient's Power Reserve Semi-Skeleton Collection. The design inspiration of this line comes from racing. Now, before we go into the design details, what makes this watch exciting is that it's a mechanical self-winding watch. Now, what that means is that when you wear the watch during your daily wear, the movement of the watch is naturally on your wrist. Now, that energy, that kinetic energy, is now stored into a spring inside your watch. Now, that spring, with the use of micromechanics, utilizes that potential energy for the timing device inside your watch. Now, that whole mechanism is called a mechanical movement, and yes, that means no batteries, no electronic components, which makes this a green choice. What makes Orient an even better decision is that they use their own in-house movements, which means that they design and manufacture everything inside the watch. Now, this practice is uncommon and revered within the watchmaking industry. This watch has time and power reserve indicator as its major function. At full charge, the watch's power reserve is 40 hours. Now, you'll notice at the top of the dial, actually in this case the bottom of the dial, now if you look at the bottom of the dial, you'll notice that you see a gauge. Now, that gauge is your power reserve indicator. Now, what the power reserve indicator does, it shows you how much more power there is in your spring. So as I mentioned to you before, at full charge is 40 hours. So when it says full, it'll go for 40 hours. And you'll notice as the watch remains still, every hour the indicator will slowly move towards empty. And when it does, the watch will stop. Now, notice when you wear the watch that you're winding the spring as you're wearing it, and so the indicator will move towards the full position. Now, this watch has a semi-skeleton dial, and what that means is that there are exhibition holes that lets you take a closer look at the movement that drives the watch. Notice on the 3 o'clock position that you can see the balance wheel, which is a timing device for your watch. And there are other holes, but what I love also is the one that's by the 9 o'clock position, which lets you see the stem of the crown. This is a wonderful feature because you can see the gears turn as you adjust your watch's time. There are several other holes in the dial that add to this mechanical racing design. Now, you'll notice that there are lots of numbers around the outer edge of the watch. The function of these rings is basically a calculated function. You'll notice at the 4 o'clock position that there is a crown that does not change the time, but moves the inner bezel. Now, using that crown, if you match it up with the outer ring, what it does is you can do basic arithmetic. The functions that this allows is addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication. The crystal or glass used in this model is sapphire crystal, which is one of the best materials used in the industry. The crystal also has an anti-reflection coating to make it easier to read. The crown, which is screwed down by design to prevent water leakage, is located by the 9 o'clock position. Now, the crown is used for time adjustment. Normally, the time adjustment crown is on the 3 o'clock position. However, Orient wants to create the effect of a fuel gauge for this racing design for the power reserve indicator. So what they did was they flipped the movement so that the crown is now in the 9 o'clock position, which gives the empty full effect, just like in your car. Now, take a look at the back of the case and you'll notice that you can see the movement with the exhibition case back. The band used is made from genuine leather with orange stitching. The buckle used is a deployment buckle, which means that you can set the band's length with a clasp, and you release the clasp and close the clasp as you're taking off and putting the watch back on, which is more efficient. This is cft00005m.